A racist CEO humiliates a black employee at a Halloween party, unaware a lawyer is overhearing everything. The air inside the grand hall shimmered with a festive glow, an elaborate Halloween party in full swing. Andre Mitchell stepped through the ornate entrance, a wave of excitement washing over him. He admired the decorations, cobwebs draped over chandeliers, skeletons dancing on the walls, and a fog machine that curled around the legs of costumed employees. This was not just a party, it was a chance for Andre to mingle with his colleagues and showcase his creativity. Dressed as a modern-day superhero, complete with a sleek black cape and mask, Andre felt confident. He had spent weeks designing his costume, drawing inspiration from his childhood heroes, and tonight he was determined to make an impression. As he moved deeper into the crowd, he could hear laughter and upbeat music filling the room. Yet beneath the surface of festivity, a tension simmered, a reminder of the corporate culture that often felt hostile to voices like his. "Hey, Andre, love the costume," shouted Marcus, a fellow marketing executive, as he approached, decked out in a clown outfit. "Thanks, man, you too. Very colorful," Andre replied, chuckling as he gestured at Marcus's oversized shoes. The two exchanged pleasantries, but Andre's mind was already racing ahead. Tonight was not just about fun, it was an opportunity to network and make connections that could propel his career forward. He had been working hard, pouring his energy into the latest marketing campaign, and he hoped this party would allow him to showcase his dedication to the team. As Andre scanned the room, his gaze landed on Charles Donovan, the company's CEO. Dressed as a pirate, complete with a feathered hat and a plastic sword, Charles commanded attention, his boisterous laughter booming over the music. It was a stark reminder of the power dynamics at play. Andre had always respected Charles for his business acumen, but he also knew that the CEO had a streak of insensitivity, particularly when it came to humor. "Let's grab a drink," Marcus suggested, pulling Andre away from the crowd. They made their way to the bar, where the bartender was mixing colorful cocktails. Andre ordered a whiskey sour, hoping the tangy taste would settle his nerves. As he took a sip, he felt the tension of the evening start to dissipate. But just as he was beginning to relax, a loud cheer erupted from the other side of the room. Andre turned to see Charles raising his glass, gathering attention like a magnet. "All right, everyone, gather around. I have a joke for you," he announced, a mischievous glint in his eye. Andre's stomach twisted. He had heard Charles's jokes before, humor that often crossed the line into offensive territory. He exchanged wary glances with Marcus, who shrugged, seemingly unfazed. The crowd began to gather, curiosity piqued. "Now, I know it's Halloween, but I'm not talking about ghosts or goblins," Charles continued, his voice booming. "I want to talk about our very own Andre here." A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd, and Andre felt his heart race. He was suddenly the center of attention, but not in the way he had hoped. You see, Andre thinks he's a superhero tonight. But let's be real, folks. What kind of superhero doesn't even know how to dress properly? That costume is more like a Halloween nightmare. The laughter erupted around him, and Andre's face flushed with humiliation. He forced a smile, but inside he felt a surge of anger and disbelief. Charles had crossed a line, using his position to belittle him in front of their colleagues. "Come on, Charles, that's a bit much," Andre muttered under his breath. But the laughter drowned him out. The crowd was eating it up, reveling in the spectacle of the moment, oblivious to the discomfort hanging in the air. "Lighten up, Andre. It's just a joke," Charles replied, waving away the discomfort with a dismissive hand. He leaned closer, smirking. "You know I love you, buddy. Just trying to keep it fun." Andre felt trapped. The laughter continued, but he was no longer part of it. He quickly glanced around to gauge the reactions of his colleagues. Some were genuinely amused, while others looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight from one foot to the other. He caught the eye of a few sympathetic faces, but the overwhelming majority were still laughing. "Do you want to go?" Marcus whispered, concern etched on his face. "No," Andre replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I can't just let this slide." Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Actually, Charles, I don't think that's funny at all," Andre said, his voice firm. "It's disrespectful, and it undermines everything we've worked for as a team." The laughter faded, replaced by a stunned silence. Charles's expression shifted from amusement to irritation. "Oh, come on, Andre. It was just a joke." "You're too sensitive," he shot back, crossing his arms as he glared at Andre. "No, Charles," Andre pressed, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "It's not about being sensitive. It's about creating an environment where we can all feel respected and valued. You might think it's harmless, but it's not." Before Charles could respond, a voice chimed in from the side. "He's right, you know." Andre turned to see Lena Garcia, a lawyer from HR, stepping forward. She had been quietly observing the exchange, and her presence suddenly shifted the balance of power. Humor should never come at the expense of someone's dignity, especially in a workplace like ours, she added, her tone measured but firm. Andre felt a surge of gratitude towards Lena. Her support was exactly what he needed. A few heads nodded in agreement, and the atmosphere began to change. The laughter had faded, replaced by an uncomfortable tension. Charles's face darkened, and he opened his mouth to retort, but Lena continued, "Charles, you've built this company on teamwork and respect. It's important to remember that we all deserve to be treated with dignity, regardless of our backgrounds. Jokes like that can perpetuate harmful stereotypes." The crowd shifted, some glancing nervously at Charles while others shot approving looks at Lena. Andre felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this could be a moment of change. "Listen, I didn't mean to offend anyone," Charles said, trying to regain control of the situation. "It was just a light-hearted joke. We're all friends here, right?" "Friends don't humiliate each other," Lena replied sharply. "It's time to acknowledge that this behavior isn't acceptable." The tension in the room was palpable as everyone waited for Charles's response. Andre's heart raced. He had crossed a line, but he felt empowered by Lena's intervention. This was not just about him anymore. It was about setting a precedent for how employees should be treated. Charles opened his mouth, but just as he was about to speak, the party's DJ announced a transition to the next activity, a costume contest. The distraction pulled attention away from the confrontation, but Andre could feel the weight of unresolved tension lingering in the air. As people began to disperse, Andre felt a mix of anxiety and relief. He had stood up for himself, but the repercussions of that moment were still unknown. Would Charles retaliate? Would his colleagues support him? Or would they distance themselves to avoid conflict? "Let's get out of here for a bit," Marcus suggested, breaking the silence. "We can regroup and grab some fresh air." "Yeah, good idea," Andre agreed, grateful for the chance to step away. As they made their way toward the exit, he couldn't shake the feeling that the night was far from over. The crisp air outside the grand hall felt refreshing against Andre's flushed cheeks. He stepped into the night, the sounds of laughter and music fading behind him. The tension of the confrontation still hung in the air like a thick fog, and his heart raced. Marcus followed closely, his expression a mixture of concern and admiration. "Man, that was bold," Marcus said as they leaned against the railing of the balcony. "I don't know how you did that." Andre shrugged, trying to play it cool, but he could feel the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "I just couldn't let it go. It was too far." "Absolutely. You stood up for yourself, and that's not easy," Marcus replied. "But you know Charles won't take this lightly, right?" "I know," Andre admitted, looking out at the city skyline. The lights twinkled like stars, a stark contrast to the darkness he felt inside. "But I couldn't ignore it. It's not just about me, it's about everyone else who's been on the receiving end of his jokes." As they spoke, Andre saw Lena standing by the entrance, engaged in conversation with a few other colleagues. She had been a silent force in the room, and now he felt a rush of gratitude for her support. She had taken a stand when it mattered most, and Andre couldn't help but feel a sense of solidarity with her. "Hey, I think I'll go thank her," Andre said, pushing off the railing and heading toward Lena. He wanted to express his appreciation for her courage. "Good idea," Marcus said, watching Andre go with a supportive nod. Approaching Lena, Andre felt a mix of apprehension and relief. "Hey, Lena," he said, catching her attention. "I just wanted to say thank you for stepping in back there. It meant a lot." Lena smiled, her demeanor warm yet professional. "Of course, Andre, you did the hard part by standing up to him. It's important to challenge that kind of behavior in our workplace." "I just hope it doesn't come back to bite me," Andre said, a hint of worry creeping into his voice. "Charles has a lot of influence, and I'm not sure how he'll react." Don't worry, Lena reassured him. I've dealt with Charles before. He's used to getting his way, but I think he'll think twice now. You're not alone in this. I'm here to support you if anything comes up. Really? That would be great, Andre replied, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. I appreciate it. Just then, a commotion drew their attention back to the main hall. The DJ announced the start of the costume contest, and the crowd erupted into cheers. Andre glanced at Lena, who raised an eyebrow. Should we check it out? She asked, her tone lightening. Why not? Let's see if anyone can outshine my superhero costume, Andre joked, trying to lighten the mood. As they walked back inside, Andre felt a renewed sense of purpose. He might have faced humiliation tonight, but he also had allies. People who cared enough to stand up against injustice. Re-entering the hall, Andre was surprised to see a diverse array of costumes, from classic witches to elaborate fairy tale characters. The laughter and excitement filled the air, but the earlier tension still lingered in the background. The contest began with contestants strutting their stuff, showcasing creativity and flair. Andre found himself laughing at the ridiculousness of some costumes, feeling the festive spirit creeping back in. Next up, our very own Charles Donovan, the DJ announced, and the crowd erupted in applause. Andre's heart sank as Charles took the stage, brandishing his plastic sword, a confident grin plastered on his face. He played up the pirate persona, but Andre could see the cracks in his bravado. The earlier confrontation weighed heavily on him, and his attempts at humor fell flat. Now let's see if I can win the Best Costume Award, Charles declared, casting a glance toward Andre. Maybe next year I'll dress up as a real superhero, one who can take a joke. The laughter was muted, and Andre felt the collective unease settle over the crowd. Charles's attempt to regain control through humor only highlighted his desperation. Wow, he really doesn't get it, does he? Lena muttered beside Andre, her tone incredulous. Nope, Andre replied, shaking his head. He thinks he can just brush this off. After Charles finished his performance, the crowd began to vote for their favorite costumes. Andre felt a sense of camaraderie with the other contestants, and when it was his turn, he stepped forward with a grin, striking a pose that drew cheers from the audience. As the votes were tallied, Andre's heart raced. Despite the earlier humiliation, he felt proud of the costume he had created and the message he was trying to convey. The crowd's energy lifted him, and for a moment he forgot about the tension. Finally, the DJ announced the winners, and the award for Best Costume goes to Andre Mitchell. The applause erupted, and Andre felt a rush of joy as he stepped forward to accept the trophy. He glanced around the room, catching the eye of several colleagues who smiled and cheered. It was a moment of validation, a reminder that standing up for oneself could lead to unexpected rewards. As he took his place on the stage, Andre looked at Charles, who stood in the back, his expression a mix of disbelief and irritation. Thank you, everyone, Andre said, his voice steady. This is a reminder that we can all be heroes, not just in costumes, but in our actions. Let's continue to support one another, especially when it matters most. The applause grew louder, and Andre felt the warmth of camaraderie enveloping him. He had faced humiliation earlier, but in that moment, he was reminded of the strength that comes from unity and support. As the crowd began to disperse after the contest, Andre felt a sense of hope. The night had taken a turn he hadn't expected, and he knew that this was just the beginning of a larger conversation about respect and inclusivity in their workplace. As he made his way back to Lena and Marcus, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Standing up for what was right had its challenges, but he was ready to face whatever came next. With allies like Lena by his side, he felt more empowered than ever to create change in an environment that desperately needed it. The aftermath of the Halloween party lingered in Andre Mitchell's mind like a haunting melody. The applause he had received for winning the costume contest felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by the confrontation with Charles Donovan. The following Monday morning, as he sat in his cubicle, the bright fluorescent lights above seemed to amplify the tension that had built up over the weekend. Would Charles retaliate? Would he face repercussions for standing up to the CEO? Andre pulled up the marketing campaign he had been working on, trying to focus on the tasks at hand. His colleagues filtered in, exchanging pleasantries and sharing snippets of the party's highlights. A few approached him, offering congratulations for the costume win, but the smiles felt strained. as if everyone was tiptoeing around the tension that had erupted. "Hey, Andre," called out Marcus, who had stopped by to check on him. "How are you holding up?" "Still processing everything," Andre replied, forcing a smile as he closed his laptop. "How about you?" "Same. Crazy how a party can turn into a battlefield, huh?" Marcus said, leaning against the desk. "I mean, I respect you for what you did, but I'm worried about the fallout." "Yeah, me too," Andre admitted, glancing around the office. "I just hope it doesn't create a rift between us and management. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable coming to me because of it." "Understandable," Marcus said, crossing his arms. "But if anyone should be uncomfortable, it's Charles. You didn't do anything wrong. You just stood up for yourself." As the day wore on, the atmosphere in the office felt charged. Andre noticed whispers among colleagues, furtive glances cast in his direction. Although they had rallied around him during the contest, the reality of the corporate hierarchy loomed large. He wondered if the support would wane now that the initial excitement had faded. Later in the afternoon, Andre was in the break room when he overheard a conversation between two senior managers. They were discussing the fallout from the Halloween party, their voices low but sharp. "Can you believe Andre called out Charles like that? It's unprofessional," one of them said, shaking his head. "I get it, but he stood up for himself. Charles shouldn't have made that joke," the other replied. "It's just that, you know how Charles is. He expects everyone to just laugh it off." Andre felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The whispers confirmed his fears. He was seen as the troublemaker now, the one who dared to challenge authority. The world he had worked so hard to navigate suddenly felt hostile, and the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. As he returned to his desk, Andre tried to push the negativity aside. He needed to focus on his work, but the tension was palpable. He opened his laptop, determined to lose himself in the marketing campaign, yet his mind kept drifting back to the conversation he had overheard. Just then, Lena walked past his cubicle and caught his eye. She paused, leaning against the partition. "Hey, how are you holding up?" she asked, her tone sincere. "Honestly, not great," Andre admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I overheard some managers talking about me, and it doesn't sound good." Lena frowned, her expression shifting to one of concern. "That's frustrating, but you did the right thing. Standing up for yourself is never wrong, and it's important for the culture here." "I know," Andre replied, but the doubt lingered. "I just wish it didn't feel like I'm the bad guy in all of this." "You're not. Charles is the one who needs to understand the impact of his words," Lena reassured him. "Sometimes it takes someone challenging the status quo to spark change. Just remember, I'm here if you need support." "Thanks, Lena. I appreciate it," Andre said, feeling grateful for her presence. "It helps to know I'm not alone in this." As the day wound down, Andre received an email notification that made his heart race. It was from HR, requesting a meeting to discuss the events of the Halloween party. He swallowed hard, anxiety flooding through him. This was it. The moment he had dreaded had arrived. "Hey, you okay?" Marcus asked, noticing Andre's tense expression. "Just got an email from HR. They want to meet with me to discuss, everything," Andre replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Damn, man, I'm sorry. Do you want me to come with you?" Marcus offered. "No, I think I need to handle this myself," Andre said, taking a deep breath. "But thanks. I appreciate it." The next morning, Andre sat outside the HR office, his heart pounding in his chest. The air felt thick as though the walls themselves were closing in on him. He replayed the events of the party in his mind, weighing every word he had said. Had he gone too far? Would they see it as insubordination? Finally, the door opened, and an HR representative gestured for him to enter. "Andre, thank you for coming. We just want to have a conversation about what happened at the Halloween party," she said, her tone neutral but firm. "Sure," Andre replied, stepping inside and taking a seat across from her. "I'm here to answer any questions." The representative flipped through some notes, her expression serious. "We received feedback about your confrontation with Charles Donovan. Some employees voiced their concerns about the appropriateness of the situation." Andre felt a rush of heat to his face. "I understand. I didn't mean to create a scene, but I felt it was necessary to speak up when he made that joke." "Your intentions are noted, Andre," she said, her professionalism unwavering. However, we want to ensure that all employees feel comfortable in their roles. We're concerned about workplace dynamics following your comments. Right, but I also think it's important to address issues of respect and dignity, Andre replied, his voice steadying. Charles's joke was inappropriate, and it's not the first time he's crossed that line. The HR representative nodded, taking notes. We appreciate your perspective. However, we must also consider the impact on company culture and how these discussions are framed. We're here to foster a collaborative environment. Andre felt a mix of frustration and determination. I understand, but avoiding these conversations doesn't help anyone. If we can't talk about these issues openly, how can we improve? The HR representative paused, her gaze steady. You're right, Andre. We appreciate your willingness to speak up, but we also need to address the potential ramifications. It's important that we find a way to discuss these matters constructively. As the meeting continued, Andre articulated his thoughts on the need for inclusivity and respect. He felt empowered to speak his truth, even as uncertainty loomed over him. It was clear that the conversation was just beginning, and he was determined to see it through. After the meeting, Andre left the HR office with a sense of resolve. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he also understood that change rarely came easily. As he walked back to his desk, he realized that his voice mattered, and that standing up for himself was just the first step in a much larger journey. The rest of the week unfolded like a storm cloud hanging over Andre Mitchell's head. Despite his resolve after the HR meeting, the tension in the office only seemed to escalate. Colleagues whispered behind closed doors, and the usual camaraderie felt strained. Andre noticed fewer people stopping by his desk, their smiles replaced with awkward nods, as if they were unsure of how to approach him after the events of the Halloween party. As he settled into his work routine, Andre felt the weight of isolation. He focused on his marketing campaign, pouring himself into the creative elements, but his mind wandered to the nagging doubts about his position in the company. It wasn't just about the confrontation, it was about the culture he was fighting against, a culture that had long been entrenched in silence. On Friday, as the week neared its end, Andre received an unexpected email from Lena Garcia. She wanted to meet up after work to discuss some ideas about a diversity initiative she was spearheading within HR. Andre's heart lifted at the thought of collaborating with her. He had admired her courage and professionalism during the Halloween party. Later that afternoon, Andre met Lena at a nearby cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the crisp autumn air. The cafe buzzed with activity, but the atmosphere felt warm and inviting. They settled into a corner booth, and Andre felt the tension of the office begin to melt away. Thanks for meeting with me, Lena said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. I've been thinking a lot about how we can create a more inclusive environment, especially after everything that happened. Absolutely, Andre replied, grateful for the opportunity to discuss meaningful change. I think we need to start by encouraging open conversations about race and respect in the workplace. It's a crucial step toward fostering inclusivity. I agree, Lena said, her expression serious. I'm putting together a proposal for a series of workshops focused on diversity training, and I'd love your input. You have firsthand experience with the issues we're facing. Andre felt a rush of pride. I'd be happy to help. I think it's essential that we create a safe space where employees can share their experiences without fear of judgment. As they brainstormed ideas, Andre felt invigorated. They discussed potential speakers, interactive exercises, and ways to engage employees in meaningful discussions. The passion in Lena's voice resonated with him, and for the first time in days, he felt hopeful about the future. Let's aim to present this to HR next week, Lena suggested, her excitement palpable. With your insights, I think we can make a strong case. Definitely. I think it's vital that we get management on board, especially if we want to change the culture, Andre said, nodding in agreement. Their conversation flowed easily, and as they wrapped things up, Andre felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just talking about change, they were actively working toward it. As they left the cafe, Lena turned to him with a serious expression. Andre, I know it's been tough this week, but I want you to remember that you're not alone. You've sparked a conversation that needed to happen, and I'm proud of you for standing up. Thanks, Lena. That means a lot, Andre said, feeling a warmth spread through him. It's easy to feel isolated when you're challenging the status quo, but having support makes a world of difference. Anytime. I'm here if you need anything, she replied, her sincerity evident. As they parted ways, Andre felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. The following week, as Andre prepared to present their diversity initiative proposal, he felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He knew the stakes were high, and he was all too aware of the potential backlash from management. But he also understood that this was a critical moment for the company, a chance to redefine its culture. The day of the presentation arrived, and Andre stood outside the conference room, his heart racing. Lena joined him, her presence a calming force. "You've got this, Andre. Just remember to speak from the heart," she encouraged, giving him a reassuring smile. As they entered the room, Andre noticed a mix of faces, some familiar, others less so. Charles sat at the head of the table, his demeanor neutral but watchful. Andre's stomach clenched as he took his place at the front of the room. "Thank you all for being here today," Lena began, her voice steady. "We're excited to present our proposal for a series of diversity workshops aimed at fostering an inclusive environment within our company." Andre took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. As Lena outlined the goals of the initiative, he watched the room closely, gauging reactions. Some nodded in agreement, while others appeared skeptical. When it was Andre's turn to speak, he felt a rush of adrenaline. "I want to emphasize that this is not just about compliance or policy. It's about creating a space where everyone feels valued and heard," he said, his voice clear and strong. "We need to acknowledge the challenges our employees face and take proactive steps to address them." Charles shifted in his seat, and Andre caught the CEO's gaze. He felt a mix of fear and determination, the memory of their earlier confrontation fueling his resolve. "I've seen firsthand how harmful jokes and comments can undermine our team's morale. It's time we commit to real change." As he spoke, Andre noticed a few heads nodding in agreement, and it gave him the confidence to continue. "We propose workshops where employees can share their experiences, participate in discussions about race and respect, and learn how to foster a more inclusive workplace." After the presentation, the room fell silent for a moment. Andre held his breath, waiting for the response. Finally, one of the senior managers spoke up. "This is a commendable initiative, and it's clear you both have put a lot of thought into it. However, how do you plan to ensure that these discussions are productive and don't create further division among employees?" Andre jumped in, eager to address the concern. "We want to create a safe word and environment where employees can express themselves without fear of retribution. That's why we're proposing trained facilitators who can guide these discussions and ensure that everyone feels comfortable participating." The conversation continued, and Andre felt a sense of camaraderie growing among the attendees. They were no longer just discussing policies. They were engaging in a meaningful dialogue about the future of the company. As the meeting wrapped up, Lena and Andre exchanged hopeful glances. The proposal had sparked interest, and several managers expressed their support for the initiative. But what about Charles? Andre wondered aloud as they walked out of the conference room. Lena sighed, her expression thoughtful. "Charles may not be on board initially, but if we can show the positive impact this initiative has on the team, he may change his mind. It's all about proving that this is beneficial for everyone." Andre nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. He had faced challenges head-on, but now he had the opportunity to help shape the company's culture for the better. As they left the meeting, Andre felt a flicker of hope burning bright. The road ahead would be filled with obstacles, but he was ready to face them. With Lena's support and the growing interest in their initiative, he knew that change was possible. The excitement from the proposal presentation lingered, but Andre Mitchell knew that the real battle was just beginning. As he returned to his desk after the meeting, he felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. The support from his colleagues had been encouraging, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that Charles Donovan would retaliate in some way. The CEO was not one to take challenges lightly, especially from someone he perceived as beneath him in the corporate hierarchy. In the days that followed, Andre dedicated himself to refining the diversity initiative. He and Lena worked tirelessly to gather feedback on their proposal, making adjustments based on the discussions from the meeting. They reached out to colleagues across departments, collecting stories and insights that would strengthen their case. The more they engaged with their coworkers, the clearer it became that many shared Andre's frustrations about the workplace culture. However, the atmosphere in the office remained tense. The whispers had not subsided, and Andre noticed that some colleagues were hesitant to engage with him openly. He could feel the weight of the corporate hierarchy pressing down, making it difficult to shake off the label of troublemaker. Despite the growing support for the initiative, the fear of Charles loomed large. On a particularly busy Thursday afternoon, Andre received an email from HR requesting another meeting. His stomach dropped as he read the subject line, "Follow-up on diversity initiative." The knot in his stomach tightened. He knew that the previous meeting had sparked interest, but he couldn't help but worry that Charles would use this opportunity to undermine him. "Hey, you okay?" Marcus asked, peering over the cubicle wall. "Not really, just got another email from HR. They want to meet again," Andre replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Dude, you've got to let me come with you this time. You shouldn't have to face this alone," Marcus insisted, his concern evident. "I appreciate it, but I think I need to handle this myself. I can't show them I'm scared," Andre said, forcing a smile. As the time for the meeting approached, Andre's anxiety grew. He took a few deep breaths, reminding himself of the importance of this initiative. He was fighting for a better workplace, not just for himself, but for everyone who felt marginalized. When he arrived at the HR office, he found Lena already there, her expression serious. "Hey, we'll get through this together," she said, giving him a reassuring nod. "Thanks, Lena. It's just that I feel like I'm walking into a lion's den," Andre replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "No matter what happens, remember that you've already made a difference. You've started a conversation that needed to happen," Lena reassured him. The HR representative entered the room, gesturing for them to take a seat. "Thank you both for coming," she said, her demeanor professional but not unkind. "We wanted to follow up on the diversity initiative and address some concerns that have arisen from management." Andre's heart raced. He could sense the tension in the air, and he glanced at Lena, who gave him an encouraging smile. "We're eager to hear your thought," she said, her voice steady. "First, I want to commend you both for your initiative. It's clear that this is a topic that resonates with many employees," the HR representative began. "However, we need to consider the implications of pushing this forward without full support from upper management, particularly from Charles." Andre nodded, understanding the delicate balance they were trying to maintain. "We're aware of the challenges, but we believe that creating a safe space for these discussions is essential for the health of the company." "Absolutely, and we appreciate that perspective," the HR representative replied. "However, we want to ensure that this initiative is framed positively and doesn't create further division among employees." Andre took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I understand the concerns, but I think we can't be afraid to have tough conversations. Avoiding these issues only perpetuates the status quo. We need to acknowledge the reality of the workplace and work toward meaningful change." The HR representative nodded, taking notes. "That's a valid point, Andre. However, we also want to ensure that the messaging aligns with the company's values. We're committed to fostering a collaborative environment, and we need to ensure that this initiative reflects that." Lena chimed in. "We want to work together to create a proposal that addresses those concerns while still allowing for open dialogue. It's crucial that all employees feel heard and respected." As they continued the discussion, Andre felt a growing sense of determination. He could see that the HR representative was receptive, but he knew that convincing Charles would be the true test. After the meeting concluded, Andre and Lena stepped out into the corridor. "How do you think that went?" Lena asked, her brow furrowed in thought. "I think they're cautiously optimistic, but we still need to get Charles on board," Andre replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "If we can show him that this initiative will benefit the company as a whole, we might have a chance." "Right. We need to frame it in a way that highlights the positive outcomes," Lena said, her eyes brightening. "We could gather data from other companies that have implemented similar programs. Show Charles that it's not just about compliance, it's about improving employee satisfaction and retention." "Great idea. I'll start researching case studies and collecting statistics," Andre said, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Over the next few days, Andre dove headfirst into his research. He gathered data on companies that had successfully implemented diversity initiatives and the positive impacts those programs had on workplace culture. He compiled testimonials from employees who had participated in similar programs, highlighting the benefits of open dialogue and mutual understanding. As he worked, Andre felt a spark of hope igniting within him. He was not just passively waiting for change, he was actively seeking it. With each statistic and success story, he felt more empowered to advocate for the diversity initiative. However, as the week dragged on, Andre couldn't shake the feeling that Charles was biding his time. The CEO had become more distant in meetings, his demeanor cold and watchful. Andre knew that Charles was not one to back down easily, and he braced himself for the inevitable confrontation. On Friday, as Andre was finalizing his presentation for the next meeting with HR, he received an unexpected email from Charles. The subject line read, "Meeting request." Andre's stomach dropped. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that he had faced challenges before. This was just another hurdle to overcome. He clicked on the email, and his heart raced as he read the message. "Andre, I'd like to meet with you regarding the diversity initiative. Please come to my office at 2 p.m. today." The clock ticked closer to the meeting time, and Andre's palms grew sweaty. He glanced at Lena, who was still working at her desk. "I just got a meeting request from Charles," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "He wants to talk about the initiative." "Wow, that's big," Lena replied, looking up from her screen. "Just remember to stay calm. You've got the data to back you up." "Yeah, but it's Charles," Andre said, the apprehension creeping back in. "What if he tries to shut me down?" "Don't let him intimidate you. You know what you're talking about, and you have the support of your colleagues," Lena encouraged. "Just be honest and stay focused on the goals." As the clock struck 2, Andre made his way to Charles's office, his heart pounding. He knocked on the door, and a moment later, Charles called out, "Come in." Andre stepped inside, and Charles gestured for him to take a seat. The CEO's office was as imposing as ever, adorned with awards and photographs that exuded success. Yet today, the atmosphere felt charged, and Andre could sense the tension in the air. "Thank you for coming, Andre," Charles said, his tone measured. "I wanted to discuss the diversity initiative and your approach moving forward." "Of course," Andre replied, keeping his voice steady as he sat down. "I'm excited to share my findings and discuss how we can implement this program effectively." Charles leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I've reviewed your proposal and the feedback from HR. While I understand the intent, I have some reservations about how this initiative could be perceived by upper management." Andre felt his heart race. "I appreciate your honesty, Charles. I believe that addressing these issues head-on is crucial for the company's future. If we don't acknowledge the problems, we're just perpetuating the same culture." Charles's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm not denying that there are challenges, but we must consider the broader implications. We have a reputation to maintain, and we can't afford to alienate our clients or stakeholders." Andre swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Charles's gaze. "I understand that, but we also have a responsibility to our employees. A positive workplace culture leads to higher productivity and employee retention. It's not just about the company's image. It's about creating a space where everyone feels valued." Charles studied him for a moment, and Andre could feel the tension crackling in the room. Charles leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk as he regarded Andre with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "You speak passionately about this, Andre. I appreciate your commitment, but we must approach this with caution. We can't afford to paint on ourselves as a company that plays favorites or gives one group preferential treatment." Andre took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I agree that fairness is crucial, but this initiative isn't about favoritism. It's about leveling the playing field and ensuring that every employee feels heard and respected. It's about fostering an environment where everyone can thrive, regardless of their background." Charles remained silent for a moment, his expression inscrutable. Andre's heart raced as he wondered if he was getting through to the CEO or if he was merely digging his own grave. "Look, I want to understand your perspective, but let's be realistic," Charles said, his tone shifting slightly. "We've never had to deal with these issues directly before. Why now? What's changed?" "Many things have changed, Charles," Andre replied, his voice steady. "The world is evolving, and so should our company. We can't afford to ignore the conversations happening outside these walls. Our employees are increasingly aware of social justice issues, and they expect their workplace to reflect those values. If we want to attract and retain top talent, we need to show that we're committed to inclusivity. Charles furrowed his brow, weighing Andre's words. You make valid points, but I need to think about the potential backlash. If we start this initiative and it goes poorly, it could reflect badly on us. Andre felt a surge of frustration. Charles, the real risk lies in doing nothing. Silence only perpetuates the problems we face. By taking a proactive stance, we set an example and demonstrate that we care about our employees' well-being. The tension in the room thickened as Andre's words hung in the air. He could see Charles considering his response, and for a moment, Andre dared to hope that he was making an impact. All right, Charles finally said, his tone more contemplative. Let's say I'm willing to entertain this idea further. What concrete steps do you propose we take? With a sense of urgency, Andre laid out his thoughts. First, we should establish a task force that includes representatives from different departments to ensure that all voices are heard. This group can help shape the initiative and gather feedback from employees. Interesting, Charles said, nodding slowly. What else? We can invite external facilitators who specialize in diversity training to lead workshops. They can provide tools for employees to engage in these discussions productively, Andre continued, feeling the momentum building. Additionally, we should conduct an anonymous survey to gauge employee sentiment on these issues before we roll out the program. This way, we can tailor our approach to meet the needs of our team. Charles sat back in his chair, visibly contemplating Andre's suggestions. And how do you envision the rollout? We can't just throw this together and expect everyone to jump on board. I propose a phased approach. We can start with smaller workshops to build trust and encourage participation. As we gather feedback and refine the program, we can gradually expand it to include more comprehensive discussions. Andre explained, his enthusiasm shining through. Charles nodded, appearing more engaged. I like the idea of a phased rollout. It allows us to assess the effectiveness of the program without overwhelming employees. Encouraged by Charles's response, Andre pressed on. And we should communicate our intentions clearly. If we frame this as a vital step toward improving our workplace culture, I believe we can rally support from management and employees alike. And what about my concerns? Charles interjected, his expression returning to a more guarded state. You know there will be pushback from some corners. How do we handle that? Andre felt a surge of determination. We handle it by being transparent and open to dialogue. If employees see that we're genuinely committed to making a change, they're more likely to support the initiative. We need to create a culture where feedback is welcomed, not feared. Charles considered this for a moment, then sighed. You've given me a lot to think about, Andre. I'm not making any promises, but I'll take your suggestions into account. Let's see how the rest of the leadership team feels about this before moving forward. As Andre stood to leave, he felt a mix of relief and apprehension. Thank you for your time, Charles. I appreciate you being willing to discuss this. Let's keep the lines of communication open, Charles said, his tone softer. And I expect you to take this seriously. If we proceed, I want to see results. Absolutely, Andre replied, determination surging within him. I'll do everything I can to ensure this initiative is successful. As he left Charles's office, Andre felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had faced the CEO, articulated his vision, and gained some ground. There were no guarantees, but he felt empowered to continue advocating for change. When he rejoined Lena in the break room, she looked up expectantly. How did it go? Better than I expected, Andre admitted, allowing himself a small smile. He's willing to consider the initiative further, but we need to gather more support from the leadership team. That's fantastic news, Lena exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. It sounds like you made an impact. I think so, Andre said, feeling a sense of hope. But we still have a long way to go. I need to rally more support from our colleagues, and I want to ensure we have a solid plan moving forward. Over the next few days, Andre and Lena worked tirelessly to gather support for the initiative. They organized informal meetings to discuss the proposal and encouraged employees to voice their thoughts and ideas. Slowly but surely, Andre began to see a shift in the office culture. Colleagues who had previously avoided him now approached him with encouragement and support. They shared their own experiences and expressed a desire to contribute to the initiative. It felt like a small but significant victory. However, the shadow of Charles still loomed large. Andre knew that gaining the support of the leadership team would be a critical hurdle, and he could sense the CEO's watchful eye on him. The stakes were higher than ever. On the day of the next leadership meeting, Andre felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He gathered his materials and prepared to present the updated proposal, knowing that this could be a pivotal moment. As he stood in front of the leadership team, Andre felt a surge of confidence. He presented the feedback they had gathered from employees, highlighting the desire for change. He shared success stories from other companies and emphasized the importance of creating an inclusive environment. But even as he spoke, Andre could feel Charles's gaze on him, sharp and scrutinizing. He knew that the real challenge lay ahead. The leadership meeting was tense, with all eyes on Andre as he presented the diversity initiative proposal. He could feel the weight of the moment, knowing that this was a pivotal juncture in the fight for change. As he laid out the details of the program, highlighting the overwhelmingly positive feedback from employees, the room grew silent. Andre glanced around, searching for any signs of support or opposition. Finally, one of the senior managers spoke up. "This all sounds well and good, but how do we know this won't create more problems than it solves? We can't afford to have our employees divided over these issues." Andre took a deep breath, determined to address the concern head-on. "I understand the hesitation, but the reality is that these issues already exist in our workplace. By addressing them directly, we have the opportunity to bring our employees together and foster a more inclusive environment." Lena, who was seated beside Andre, chimed in. "We've carefully considered the potential challenges and have designed the initiative to be a collaborative effort. The goal is to create a safe space for open dialogue, not to pit one group against another." Charles, who had remained silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke up. "And what if these discussions stir up more controversy than we're prepared to handle? We have a reputation to uphold, and I'm not willing to risk that for the sake of political correctness." Andre felt a surge of frustration, but he knew he needed to tread carefully. "Charles, this is not about political correctness. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and respected. If we do not address these issues head-on, we risk losing talented employees and damaging our company culture in the long run." The room fell silent as the leadership team considered Andre's words. Lena leaned in, her expression determined. "We've gathered data from other companies that have successfully implemented similar initiatives. The benefits far outweigh the risks, and we're confident that with the right approach, we can create positive change." After a lengthy discussion, the leadership team agreed to move forward with the diversity initiative, albeit with a few caveats. They would start with a smaller pilot program, closely monitor the results, and make adjustments as needed. Charles, though still visibly skeptical, gave a reluctant nod of approval. As the meeting adjourned, Andre felt a surge of relief and pride. They had overcome a significant hurdle, and he knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey. He approached Charles, determined to maintain the momentum. "Thank you for considering this, Charles. I know it wasn't an easy decision, but I appreciate your willingness to give it a chance," Andre said, extending his hand. Charles shook it, his expression unreadable. "Don't make me regret this, Andre. I'm trusting you to make this work." "You have my word," Andre replied, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. In the weeks that followed, the diversity initiative took shape. Andre and Lena worked tirelessly, assembling a diverse task force and bringing in experienced facilitators to lead the workshops. The response from employees was overwhelmingly positive, with many expressing gratitude for the opportunity to share their experiences and have their voices heard. As the program gained momentum, Andre couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. The initial resistance from Charles and some members of the leadership team had slowly given way to cautious optimism. Employees were engaging in meaningful discussions, and the atmosphere in the office began to shift. One day, as Andre was walking through the office, he overheard a group of colleagues discussing the diversity workshops. Their tone was enthusiastic, and they were sharing insights and ideas for how to build on the program's success. Feeling a surge of pride, Andre approached them, and they welcomed him warmly. It was a stark contrast to the tension he had faced just a few months earlier. In that moment, he knew that the change they had fought for was taking root. As the diversity initiative continued to evolve, Andre received recognition for his role in spearheading the effort. Charles, though still somewhat reserved, acknowledged the positive impact the program was having on the company's culture and employee morale. For Andre, the journey had been filled with challenges, but the sense of accomplishment he felt was unparalleled. He knew that the work was far from over, but he was determined to keep pushing forward, to create a workplace where everyone could thrive, regardless of their background. You've made it to the end. If you enjoyed this story, I am confident that you'll love the next one appearing on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and please give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.